So you just realized that you're an autonomous being who has free will. And now you need an AR-15 so nobody can infringe on that free will. And the immediate next question would be, what type of AR do I want to buy? Do I want to save a little money, go the budget route, or am I looking to spend, get something what could be called premium, you know, one of those battle-ready rifles that everyone's always talking about? So first, let's define what a budget AR is. A budget AR is like your first love. She's not the girl you marry, but you still think about her years later because she was just so fun and carefree to be around. Always an adventure with her, right? And maybe your friends tried to convince you that she wasn't the one for you, but you loved her anyway. So anyway, getting into it, what I have in front of me today is a Diamondback. The DB15 CCMLB, I believe, is the model. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Anyway, I bought this rifle about 5 years ago for around, I'd say, $550. I think they're currently MSRPing for a little over $700. I just want to give you guys a ballpark range, but you'll definitely have to verify that for yourself. But either way, definitely considered a budget rifle. All standards, all things considered. And I can start off by saying, you know, just straight out the gate, I do love this rifle. I've had a great experience with it overall. Does that mean it's perfect? Absolutely not. That's what we're going to get into today. But it has definitely served the needs and met the expectations that I wanted it to. So like I said, I've had it for about 5 years. I'm about at that 10,000 round mark, which I think gives me a little bit of credibility to actually speak on how this rifle has performed. So just going straight from the get-go, we're not really going to talk so much about, you know, all the things that I've changed to it, whether that's the furniture on it, you know, and other items. But we're going to focus basically on what you get from the box when you buy it from Diamondback. So when you get this from Diamondback, you'll see that I still have and haven't changed the muzzle device. That's still going to be the standard A2 flash hider. Really no frills there, but again, what can you expect from a budget rifle? That's probably what you're going to get on all of them. And so now we're going to get into what is probably my biggest gripe with the rifle. That's going to be the barrel. So this is a 16-inch AR. But one thing about it is that it's actually a carbine length gas system. So you can have between a carbine length, mid-length, rifle length. You tend to not so much see carbine length gas systems. You see more mid-length, sometimes rifle. And that's going to change how the system is actually gassed. And this thing is gassed heavy. I mean, ejection pattern is kind of one way to tell how an AR is gassed. And you like to see about that 3 o'clock range, which is basically right off to the side of you, right? Perpendicular to you. This gun is ejecting about 1 o'clock, like right in front of you. If it could be any straighter, it would be, but that's just how it's set up. So that's definitely my biggest gripe, is that it's a carbine length gas system. So you're getting a lot of dwell time and you're getting a lot of gas and a lot of pressure into this upper receiver and into all of these components up here. So that means more wear on your bolt carrier group, more wear on your buffer system, and just overall, you know, it's just less pleasant to shoot because of that high amount of gas. And then so you're probably asking, Adam, why would you buy a carbine length gas system on a 16-inch AR? Well, I didn't know any better at the time. It really just comes down to that. This was my first AR that I ever purchased. At the time, I had to YouTube how to load an AR. Like that was my level of knowledge, you know, but we learn, we grow. Definitely that's not the case anymore. But yeah, that's going to be my number one gripe about this rifle, is that it's a carbine length gas system. The barrel has a 1 1/8 twist. So if you're not familiar, barrels come in different twist rates. So a 1 1/8 means that for every 8 inches of length, you get 1 full rotation of rifling within the barrel. 1 1/8 is okay. If you're really stepping up to higher quality barrels, you tend to see 1 7. And 1 7 is actually a faster barrel, meaning you get a little more spin on the projectile as it exits the barrel. And you might always think that's a good thing, but it depends really on what load of ammunition you're shooting. So a 1 7, which is faster, tends to be a little better for that higher grain ammunition, like 77, maybe 68. 1 8, which is a little slower, tends to probably be a little better for like 62 grain ammunition, because it's all about stabilizing, right? So you want to stabilize the projectile as it goes down range. And if it's too fast for a light projectile, it'll actually create wobble. So you don't want that. You don't want it to tumble. You don't want anything like that. So you just got to kind of match the ammunition to the twist rate. But 1 7 tends to be, like I said, a little more of a premium rate. I don't know if that's the right thing to say, but you see it more in higher quality barrels. And other than that, there's no other special specs about it. I mean, it's definitely not cold hammer forged. It's not even chrome lined and nothing like that. It's just standard barrel. I don't even think it's government profile. I can't tell. It's definitely bulky. You definitely don't get like an adjustable gas block or anything like that. So as I said, it's gassed very heavy, and you definitely feel it when you shoot. So that kind of brings me into the next point is going to be, let's say, we're going to talk about the bolt carrier and the buffer tube. So I'm no longer running the mil spec that was provided, but I did run that for about 4 years, 4.5. These two items, I now have a Lantac mil spec BCG, and I have the Geisley Super 42 triple braided spring with the Strike Industries H3 buffer in there to kind of mitigate, like I said, that heavy gas that you get through the system. But the first initial 10,000 rounds were done with the mil spec components, and they definitely held up well. I've never had a function issue with this gun, like a failure to eject, a failure to feed, in all the years that I've had it. So it's definitely given with parts that hold up to the job and they get the task done, they get the job done right. I did, however, swap this BCG out just recently because I did a couple of tests on it, and I could see that it had definitely worn down with the gas rings. So if you didn't know, when you have a bolt carrier, you should be able to open it, place it on the bolt face, and it should actually stand on its own weight. It shouldn't collapse. If it does collapse, that means the gas rings are a little worn out, and you're probably getting some gas leakage, and it's just not as efficient as it could be. So as you can see here, this one collapses, and compared to the new one, it does not collapse. So I just ended up swapping that out. But even with the old bolt carrier and the leaky gas rings, it still ran. It never had an issue, but I swapped it out to avoid any type of failure down the road. I will end up changing out those gas rings, or maybe just get a new bolt altogether. I'm not going to complain about the wear or having to change out the bolt carrier group though, because that's normal in all ARs. You're going to get wear, you're going to have to swap parts. The only thing I could say is it probably happened quicker than it should have, so a little premature, but it really still wasn't too much of an issue. It was going to happen anyway. Then let's talk about the buffer system. Buffer system, again, it did its job, meaning it never caused any functionality issues. But like I said, it definitely had the ejection pattern not where you want it to be. So can you run it without a heavier buffer? Yes, you can. I did it for a very long time, but it's just nicer to have something a little heavier that will actually balance it. So that was something you could look into or keep in mind, is you might have to change out a bolt carrier group early, and you might have to buy a new buffer or buffer spring if you do want to kind of mitigate that gas. So if we get into the handguard now, this is a 14-inch handguard, I believe, just with M-LOK railing. This was actually one of the reasons I bought the gun, because I liked how lightweight it was and how thin it was. Very slim, very easy to get the grip on it that I liked. But one thing I didn't realize at the time was, you know, guns get hot, barrels get hot. So this thing, after about 100 rounds, is cooking. I mean, you cannot bare hand get a grip on this thing without like risking your hand getting a little toasted. So you'll see I ended up having to put on some rail scales. These are pretty new, but that helps a lot with that heat transfer. And then I always run a glove anyway. So for me, it's never really an issue. But if I ever take anyone with me to the range, it is an issue, you know, because they don't have gloves like I have. So I tend to have to let them shoot the gun first before it heats up, and then I shoot it later if I end up shooting. So that's something to consider, is that the rail heats up pretty quickly. And I kind of wish it was a little longer too. So 14-inch, I would have liked to have seen 15. But that's just because, you know, once you start putting attachments on, you realize real estate is kind of everything. And I mean, I have a pretty simple setup. Like I just have a little BCM hand stop and a light and the pressure pad up on top. But you start to realize, and I usually run a swing. I don't have it on there right now either with the QD mount up here. But you start to realize you start getting limited in how you can configure things unless you have a little more space. And then you'll notice I definitely have changed some furniture on it. You don't get a Daniel Defense stock. and a Radiant Raptor charging handle right out the box. You just get the standard mil-spec charging handle, which it does its job, but I'm a left-handed shooter, so I'm basically handicapped right. But that's really hard to charge it as a left-handed shooter because the tab to do it is actually on the opposite side. So it would be me trying to reach across or me letting go of my grip and then charging it. So something like an ambidextrous charging handle is kind of a need for me, and it might be for you if you're also a left-handed shooter, so keep that in mind. And it just came with the standard Magpul MOE stock. The reason I had to change that out was because it didn't have any type of QD attachment on it. So if you want to run a sling, make sure you're checking that if the furniture is QD compatible or if it has one of those attachments. If it doesn't, you're gonna have to buy one, right? Like myself. And then it also came with standard Magpul MOE pistol grip. Sorry, I totally just. But now I'm running the dye-free Kung Fu grip. This is pretty new. I was also running the Daniel Defense pistol grip for a long time, but I mean that's just mostly for, it's like ergonomic. It doesn't do anything else other for the gun, right? And then getting to just a couple of the controls. I do have the Radiant Raptor Talon ambidextrous safety select. That also does not come with the rifle. It comes with just a single side mil-spec on safety, which I ran again for a very long time. I had that for about 3 years. It does the job. Mag release here. Don't worry, it's clear, everybody. So standard mag release, one side, not ambidextrous. Standard bolt release and catch, one side, not ambidextrous. So basically, you're not going to get any ambi controls when you buy a budget rifle. That's something to realize. So if you're a left-handed shooter, keep that in mind. All right, so let's just quickly talk about the trigger on this rifle. As everything else, when you buy it, it's just mil-spec, right? I mean, it's clunky, it's heavy, it's not great, but it works. As you'll see, I mean, I still have the mil-spec trigger because it's done exactly what I needed to do all this time. Am I going to change it? Maybe one day, but that's not really one of my priorities right now. So just expect that, right? And I think most people who buy a budget AR are looking for function, right? You're not looking for that, again, premium, like, oh, I need that crisp, single stage, 3.5 pound trigger. You know, you'll save that for something else down the road. You need something that works and you can count on, and this works. And some final closing thoughts before we end the video. As I mentioned before, with this rifle, I've never had any function issues like a failure to feed, a failure to eject, or any misfires. And when I purchased this, my brother actually purchased his own Diamondback, which was a different model. But I mean, his 5 years later, just like mine, still works, still runs. He shoots it all the time. So it's just good to know they do have held up all this time and all these years. So would I recommend a Diamondback to somebody? And the answer depends on who's asking, right? So if you're somebody who's looking for that home defense rifle or a first rifle, and you just need to be able to pick it up at a moment's notice and know it's going to work and do what you need it to do, absolutely I recommend this. You know, it's probably going to be the right rifle for you. You'll be able to purchase attachments, you know, that actually give you a little more wiggle room as far as budget because you saved on the rifle, so you can put a little more work into that. But if you're the guy who you're looking for a battle rifle, something you want to call a duty rifle or whatever, I would not recommend this rifle. I would say look into something a little higher end. You know, maybe get a Daniel Defense, a Radiant, Noveski, something along that route. And then there's in between, you know, you have Aero Precision, BCM, which are also really good choices. But so if you're looking for that, I said that higher end where you want to be shooting a lot and you're going to shoot often, I would probably stay away from Diamondback. But if you're just looking for the I need it to work when I need it to work home defense rifle, this won't do you wrong. So that's going to wrap up the video, guys. Next time, I'll be having a video very soon actually going over the way I've spec'd it out. You know, we'll talk about the furniture, we'll talk about the optic, and the way I have it set up to my liking, and that'll just be in the near future, so look for that. Other than that, thanks for watching. Have a good one.